The wilderness has been updated once again. Nerfed is what you would call it, with the removal of the threat system, rearranging of many creatures, and tweaking of some mechanics. Many players are loudly expressing their various opinions on this, and I'm interested in what areas of the wilderness are now better or worse for you, specifically when it comes to Wilderness Slayer Tasks. So I took a very unprepared stroll through the updated wilderness. Come along with me. Spoiler alert, it's still really dangerous. Good day everybody, and welcome. In addition to Slayer creature changes in the wilderness, the news update also mentioned something about changes to Mandrith's reward chest for wilderness tasks. After my first wilderness task since this update, I noticed, since this is an Iron Man by the way, first thing I did before anything else in this video is go to show off my new Annihilation, as well as the obliteration I got in a past wilderness flash event sack. I've also gotten a Dark Onyx core, which was exceedingly rare, and now will supposedly be easier to find in very wild reward sacks. Anyway, all that is to say that I'm fairly experienced when it comes to the new Wilderness, or the Wilderness Reborn, and have already been on a binge of Wilderness Slayer tasks before the update this week anyways. So before we stroll through the whole Wilderness to see what's changed, I want to tell you first about 6 Slayer tasks in the Wilderness that I noticed are now much better or much worse than before the update. Number 1, Acheron Mammoths are slightly better. Nothing noticeable has changed with the actual mammoths except their placement. They're more spread out in their wilderness area now, with 2 mammoths even roaming close to Mandrith. They're still non-aggressive, which is great because I'm pretty sure you can't effectively kill these taking on more than one at a time. The most important change here though is that the very irritating Glacors, Glaciors, pronunciation. Anyways, they've been moved completely from the area south of the Mammoths and are now south of the gate here and in the area east and south of the Wyverns. Even the Glacor, Glacior, whatever, hanging out by the entrance to Zimorgul's fort is gone, so that one won't bother you if you want to exit the wilderness that way. The best spot to kill mammoths in the wilderness is still roughly here, west of the agility course, but the task is marginally better because Glaciors won't blast you unexpectedly. Number 2, Ripper Demons are much worse now. This is because their mechanics actually work in the wilderness now, meaning they use slaughter if you attack them from a distance, and they use their insta-kill death plunge mechanic, most importantly. All of them, all the demons. I previously made a video on this and loved this wilderness task before because before this update, if you let the Rippers attack you first, none of their mechanics would trigger. This means you could safely AoE a ton of them by standing in the middle of their area, and with a half-decent Animate Dead setup with Deflect Melee, you didn't even need a Vampirism aura to heal. I was getting by with just a Bunyip and Excalibur activation like once per task. That has all changed. To be honest, I always thought it was probably a bug that none of the Ripper Demon mechanics worked before when they attack first. So this is honestly probably more of a bug fix, in my opinion, but it brings Ripper Demon slaying back to one-on-one, I think, for most, or for all players. Your best bet now for Wilderness Ripper tasks is probably the lonely one that spawns south of the Mage Arena. Number 3, Kal'gerion Demon tasks are better. That's another word I have no idea the pronunciation on, by the way. Anyways, the reason being that Kal'gerion Demons are aggressive now in a multi-combat area, and it looks like there are more spawns than there were before. So when I say better, it means better from an advanced Slayer perspective, where you want to be aggroing as many creatures at a time for the fastest experience. You could have just used an aggression potion before this update here too, but there is another reason this is better now in the wilderness specifically. If you're going to fully or partially AFK Slayer in the wilderness, it is very important to not get blasted by the volcano or an ambush. I can't tell you how many times I was AFKing the Abyssal Lord on the hill during my Scourge grind, and turned my back from my phone or computer for 30 seconds and saw that I ended up in Death's office. Since the volcano and ambush are off the table now, you can AFK Kal'gerions now if you stand roughly here, and you don't even need an aggro potion. The only new danger to note is that the eastern end of this area now has Greater Demon Ashlords and Berserkers wandering about, not to be confused with the regular Greater Demons still sprinkled in. By the way, I'm doing pretty badly here because I'm not on task for these at the moment. I wasn't really ready to start killing these, I'm just illustrating a point here and walking through. Number 4, Abyssal Lords are a little worse to slay in the wilderness now, depending on how you were slaying these before. The change could be only a minor inconvenience. If you have Crypt Bloom, you can set up a cannon to the west of this area here, north of the herb patch, and tank a number of lords and abyssal beasts. This was a good strategy for that type of gear before. Otherwise, your best bet is what I did for my Scourge, which is standing on this specific square on the hill and AFKing this Abyssal Lord with magic or ranged. Animate Dead makes this really, really easy. The difference I see now, however, is that you are no longer totally out of the attack range of at least one of the beasts in the area. Could be a minor inconvenience, like I said, if you have an Abyssal Lord task from Mandrith. If you have an Abyssal Demon task, though, and want to slay Lords for it, for the massive Slayer experience or the Scourge drop, the beasts will eat away at some of your kill count per task. Overall, though, at least you won't rack up innumerable AFK deaths to the volcano or ambushes anymore on this task like I did. Number 5, Wyverns are a bit better, but it depends how you slay them in the wilderness. I made a separate guide for these too a while back, and unlike the situation with the Ripper Demons, it looks like that strategy still works. My strategy involves maging or ranging the Wyverns from this specific spot. You will take way more damage than if you melee them this way, but the thing is that standing in this area specifically puts you just outside the chill mechanic that the Wyvern area has. The chill effect deals you very frequent, pretty high poison damage, and outside the wilderness, in the Wyvern Cavern, it's dealt with by lighting fires at designated fire pits. It's only as of this week that the same fire pits have been added to the wilderness Wyvern area. This also seems like a bug fix to me, since it was always really weird to introduce these Wyverns and their horrible chilly poison mechanic without any way to negate it. Besides just cheesing them from the edge of the area. So it doesn't change much if you use my distance strategy, and honestly I still prefer it, because even with the fires lit and standing near them, I noticed that the poison still hits pretty hard. But if you want to melee these, which is typically the most effective way to do this task, it's easier now, and it looks like the risk of getting piled by multiple Wyverns isn't too high. And when I say it's easier to melee them now, I mean it's actually possible because you can light fires. Number 6, Greater Demon, Berserkers, and Ash Lords have moved entirely. There was a great concentration of them around the snowy teleport obelisk to the west. This spot has been completely taken over by Glaciers. Now the only Greaters that I could find in the wilderness are to the very northeast outside the Dragonkin Laboratory entrance, east of the Kal'gerion Demons and spreading south of there. I don't know if this change is better or worse. I do know that these demons are important to many players grinding big Slayer experience, and good to know because with this week's update, it was noted also that Mandrith will assign this task more often now. If you struggled to kill multiple at once before this update, it looks like it may be a harder task for you now since they are more clumped together. Although by the entrance to ED2, it looks like you can lure out a Berserker or something like that. If you Crypt Bloom through and tank multiple of these at once anyways, this task might be better for you now since the demons are more concentrated in the same place. Aside from all this, all other Slayer creature areas I passed through look largely unchanged. If I missed anything though, please do let everyone know in the comments. But as far as I can see, that about covers the major changes to the landscape of the wilderness. I took a dive into 4 and 3 Dungeon 2 to see if anything changed there, but it doesn't look like it. The wilderness is still pretty unsafe if you're unprepared. If you're moderately prepared, it looks like you'll be fine and cruising with less worry than before. There are many other changes made with this update that I don't really want to cover here. I don't have fully formed thoughts yet on what this update means for the future of the wilderness and other future updates we'll see. I will jump on board with many YouTubers and players in saying that it's not a good look to just heavily nerf content that turned out badly or ill-received by players shortly after launch. But I'm going to hold out optimism on my end for future updates, mostly for any expansion around Fort 4 and 3 and future activities we might see there, especially combat-related ones, and especially related to the wilderness. And I will say, on the positive side of nerfing things like crazy, it at least is one way to listen to the complaints of many players and address a problem before it gets bigger. It's not clean to use a hammer and just clobber entire feature sets like the wilderness threat system, and it would be better in the future to see a more scalpel approach, a more along the lines of fine-tuning existing features to improve players' experience. But honestly, RuneScape's wilderness and threat level therein as it relates to player versus player gameplay and all other kinds of gameplay in the wilderness has been a mess for probably the entire existence of RuneScape after the evolution of combat. I will admit it's not a simple chunk of content to bring into relevance in 2023, and it is a giant chunk of content that needs to be brought up to speed. That's all I'll say on that for now. I'm sure there are other YouTubers with plenty of thoughts on the future of RuneScape in that sense. I appreciate you very much for watching my little guide. If you found this video helpful and enjoyed it, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to my channel for more fun content like this. Happy wilderness slaying, everybody. I'll catch you in the next one.